Hi there, welcome back. Welcome to another Coaching Corner. Now, how did you get on last month implementing the Continue, Stop, Start? I wonder how many new bits of information, new insights you got from your team in order to help you manage them more effectively. Hopefully lots, and hopefully you can get even more by building on what you learned last month with what we're covering this month, which is all about communication. This is the first in a three-part series of communication because communication is such a massive topic, and in our experience, most people and most organisations feel they could benefit from improving their communication skills. Now, in this particular session, what we're going to look at is planning communication. If you haven't already, take a look at our Spotlight article, our How Do I tips, and our toolkit section on our website. There's lots more information, tools, techniques and tips that you can use to help you with communication. In this coaching corner, we're going to focus on planning for a communication that you have happening at some point in the future. So what I'd ask you to do is to, in your mind, think about a communication that you have to give at some point in the near future. Now, it could be in your work life, in your personal life, it could be written, it could be verbal, whichever it is. I'm going to introduce you to a 5-step model that will help you to plan and prepare for that communication, and as a result, you'll be much more likely to get the outcome that you're looking for. You might want to grab a pen and paper because you might want to make some notes as we go through this, because part of the preparation process is writing down what you're planning to communicate. But the beauty of this being a video, feel free to pause it at any time, and obviously you can come back and listen to it again. But if you want to grab a pen and paper, pause it just now and come back when you've grabbed that. Okay, so if we're ready to go, let me introduce you to the model. It's the ABCDE model. Very simple, very easy to follow. The reason that it's good, the reason that it works, is because it helps you to be more clear and concise in what you're communicating. It gets rid of the waffle. It means that you're communicating at a time that is right for your audience, and therefore they're going to be more receptive to your message. It helps you create more of an impact with your message and helps you to get the outcome you're looking for. And as a result of all of those things, you increase your credibility and your reputation as a communicator. So if that sounds good, and hopefully it does, then continue to listen and work through these steps with me. Now, these steps each have some questions attached to them. So what I'm going to do in this coaching session is take you through each step and ask you each question to get you to think about how you would apply this to your real life situation. So let's start off with the first one, A, which is audience. The question you're going to ask yourself here is, who is my audience? Is it an individual person? Is it a group of people? And then crucially, what do I know about my audience? So what do I know about them? What's their relationship to me? What's that relationship like? If it's in an organisational setting, what's their position? What's their knowledge and experience of this subject, and what is their knowledge and experience, their sort of specialist area, I guess. If it's a non-work situation, again, what's your relationship to this person, and what do they know already about this subject that you want to communicate on? What do you know about them? What gender are they? What age are they? What's their nationality? What's their location? Anything that you think will be important for you in terms of deciding how best to communicate with them. Now, you also want to ask yourself the question, what do I not know about my audience, and who can I get that information from? There may be certain things that would help you to know in advance that you don't currently know. So work through those questions, think through who is your audience, who can you find out more about your audience from, and make a note of those things. Now, that's the starting point. You need to know who your audience is. That's the first key to good communication. The second point in our process is B, which is behaviour. And the question we ask ourselves is why? Why am I communicating this message to this audience? What's the outcome I'm looking for? What do I want my audience to do with this message? Do I want them to take action on it, hence the behaviour? Do I want them to learn it, to understand it, to know it, to debate it? What's the reason for me communicating this message to this audience at this time? If you're not clear on your outcome at this point, it's going to be much more difficult for you to be clear and concise in terms of what you're wanting to actually communicate. So it's really important to be aware of not just who you're communicating to, but what's the reason for you communicating to them. So think about your scenario. What do you want your audience to do with your message? Okay, so that's the A and the B, the who and the why. Now we're moving on to C, which is the content. And the question we ask ourselves here is what? What do I want to communicate? And you might be wondering why we didn't start off with that, and that's the mistake that a lot of people often make. They start with the question of, what's my message? What do I want to communicate? Rather than, who am I communicating to? So it's important to know who your audience is and what your outcome is, and then that helps you to refine your content down to keep it clear and concise and focused for the people you're communicating with and the outcome you're looking for. So take all of the content that you could possibly include in this message and focus your attention on your audience. What's going to make sense to them? What's important, interesting, relevant to them? What kind of language do they use? What kind of language do they relate to? What's going to make this information stick for them? What's going to engage them in this message that you're trying to communicate to them? So think about your content from your audience's point of view. Step into their shoes and clearly think about your outcome and communicate what needs to be communicated to achieve your outcome and not more. So that's your A, B and C. That's who you're communicating to, what the outcome is you're looking for, and the content that you want to get across. The next point is D, which is delivery. So when, where and how are you going to communicate this? Those are the three questions. When are you going to communicate this message? And again, think from your audience's point of view. What's the best time to communicate this message to them? Not the best time for you to communicate it, but the best time for them to receive the communication. So think about when they're going to be most receptive to what you've got to say. 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon may not be the best time. When they've just walked in the door after a hard day's work may not be the best time. Think about what's going to be going on for them and when are they most likely to be receptive and to engage with your message. So that's the when. The where, well, that's sometimes going to be outside of your control. Sometimes your message is going to have to be delivered remotely, and that's a challenge in itself. But even then, you can think about where you're going to be when you deliver your message and perhaps try and influence where your audience is going to be. So maybe if it's a conference call, agree and make arrangements for where you're going to have the call and where they're going to be when they receive the call. If you're able to control the environment, what you want to be thinking about is the atmosphere that you want to create. Is it an informal atmosphere? Is it more formal? How relaxed do you want your audience to be? Think about the message you're delivering and the atmosphere you want to create to make that message be more receptive to your audience. So if it's informal, perhaps sitting in a coffee shop, in the staff canteen, on the sofa at home if you're communicating with a family member. Maybe those informal settings are okay, but maybe you need it to be more formal, so it needs to be a meeting room, or perhaps sitting around the dining table at home to just create that air of seriousness and more formality. So when and where, again thinking from your audience's point of view, and when and where in terms of when you're going to be in the best frame of mind and where you're going to be able to deliver your best communication. And now we move on to how are you going to deliver the message, and try to avoid the default setting that we find a lot of organisations and a lot of people default to, which is email. We think I've got a message to communicate, particularly if it's to more than one person, and we send an email. And we think when we've hit that send button, the message has been delivered, received and understood. And actually, sometimes none of those things happen. Sometimes the email disappears, it doesn't actually get delivered, or it goes into a spam folder. Sometimes it doesn't get opened and doesn't get read. And even if it has, sometimes it's not understood. So think about how you can communicate your message in writing, on the telephone, ideally face to face. It's always going to be the most effective form of communication, because a huge percentage of what we pick up from a communication is non-verbal. So if you're face to face, not only does your audience pick up more from you, but you pick up immediate clues from them on whether they are receiving and understanding your message. So think about face-to-face if it's possible, and if not, think about how you might formulate your communication and deliver it in a way that works for your audience and works for you. Now the final bit is E, which is evaluation. This is the bit that most people don't bother doing, but it's crucial, because if you're to improve your communication next time, you really need to evaluate how well it sat with your audience this time. To evaluate effectively, you really have to have done step 2 or B, which is behaviour, identifying your outcome. What do you want your audience to do with your message? Because if you've clearly defined that, you can then observe and listen and watch to see whether they've done what it was you expected them to do. And that's a good measure of success. There may be other factors that result in the message not being picked up and maybe action not being taken. But again, if you evaluate, you'll identify that. You may find next month's session on influencing and persuading useful at that point, because part of your evaluation may say you've not been persuasive enough, you've not got people on side. So next month we'll tell you more about that. But just to summarise what we've covered just now, it's really important to plan and prepare your communication. Our 5-step ABCDE model, combined with our questions of who, what, when, where and why and how, will help you to do that planning process, whether it's written or verbal, whether it's at work or whether it's at home. So good luck with that, good luck with your communication, and I'll look forward to seeing you again next month. Thanks very much.